safety of the herd. So while we watch our very special elephants here, let's jump all the way back across to South Africa to join Scott, who has got one of the most beautiful antelope in the world.
Hello everyone, and a special welcome to everyone who has just joined us on the Nat Geo Wild page, as well as another special welcome to the kids at Red Bank and Allenton Elementary Schools. We've got lucky and stumbled upon some kudu who are quenching their thirst at the waterhole. My name's Scott and I'm teamed up with Seb on camera. This is a bit one of our devices over here on the left. It's a drone, so we may deploy that a little bit later, but it may get in the way, just to let you know what that is. Let's take a look. It looks like there may be some more kudu coming down to the water's edge. I was quite surprised to only see two. Usually they do move in slightly larger herds than this. Now look at the one in the middle. It's a young male and it keeps looking very, very intently into the water, and I think it's just trying to make sure that there's no crocodiles trying to sneak up on them, because the kudu can't be certain whether or not there are any crocodiles in any given body of water. And it's not just the crocodiles they're going to be cautious of while they come down to the water's edge, but also of other predators like lion and leopard that could ambush them. Wonderful. It looks like this female is quite heavily pregnant. Her belly looks quite large. Well, maybe not too heavily pregnant, but she certainly does seem to be carrying a youngster there. Oriona, you would like to know if there are many different animal species in Africa, and yes, there are many. Too many for me to even hazard a guess at, but there are many different types of mammals, insects, birds, reptiles, you name it. And I guess it's fair to say there's a large amount of animals on most continents. The reason why I guess you may not find a lot in and around the cities is because, of course, us humans have taken all of their habitat, whereas here, where we live alongside the animals and where the bush is as it was many, many years ago, you tend to find quite a wide and diverse array of different species. Now the kudu are quite lucky. They live, a lot of their time is spent in quite thick vegetation, and that's why they've got very, very big ears, and they're definitely using those ears to try and make sure that there is nothing creeping up on them. In thick vegetation like this, it can be quite useful to listen out rather than trying to see the predators. Very good. We're going to send you back to Noel.
Just there we've got more warthog that have run off. It's a little group of males, and what they were doing just as we arrived here is they were cooling themselves down in the heat of the day. It's quite warm today, and just behind me I've got this really amazing mud pan, and this is what they were rolling in. So could you imagine when you all get hot that you have to go jump in that mud pan and cover yourselves in mud? Not only does it cool them down, but it also helps them get rid of any parasites that are on their bodies. It suffocates them, and then they go and they scratch them off. Nadia, you'd like to know, at what age do the Pumbas start living on their own? When they're about a year to 2 years. It depends. So the males kind of start going off around 1.5 years-ish, 2 years, sometimes a little bit younger. And then sometimes the females will stick around together, but a lot of the time they'll move off. They just need to be a little bit bigger. I've seen mums with litters from previous seasons that have kept with them for, yeah, about 2 years, I would say. Just about 2 years. They need to be a little bit bigger. They're a good food source for lion and for leopard and for cheetah, so it's hard for them. They have to be before they can walk. Now, Caitlin, they're born inside termite mounds. I'll find you a termite mound now. There's these holes that are in there that are made from an aardvark. An aardvark eats termites. It's got long ears and a big snout. And the aardvark digs in, and then when the aardvark's done with it, the warthogs go in. And the mum goes in backwards, and then she renovates a little bit. She makes her babies a little shelf, and they're teeny tiny when they come out. They're like this big, so it can fit in your hand. And then as they're born, within a day or so, they can walk around, probably a little bit less than a day. And then when they're a couple of weeks old, the mum will start bringing them out. It's very cute. Let's see if we can see these boys again. Now, other animals that will use mud pans to cool down would be something like an elephant, like you saw with Jamie. There they go. But our warthogs are running off now, so I think let's head up to my friend Ralph, who's in Kenya, who I think has zebra, if I heard correctly, which will be fun for everybody to see. So let's head on up to him.
Thank you, Noel, and thank you to all the boys and girls that are joining us from Alanton and Red Bank Elementary. We're coming to you from Kenya, and that's a country in Africa, but it's quite a lot further north than South Africa, very close to the equator. And don't know if the teachers will be able to show you exactly where we are. But we're sitting here watching some beautiful zebra with their black and white markings. Zoe, you want to know how do we know the age of different animals? Well, Zoe, with different animals, we have different ways of finding out how old they are. Now, if we look at those two zebra there, well, we've got four of them. The one at the back on the left, that one there, is quite a lot younger than those ones on the right. And so the adults, they probably from about 3 years old. They're looking at really fully grown. So that one on the left is probably between a year and 2 years of age, because he's quite a lot younger than those. And so you can see from the size, you can also see a little bit from their coat or the fur that is on them. And so we use different techniques for different animals. Geordie, you want to know how long do zebra normally live for? If I'm not mistaken, it's about 20 years. But I'm just going to have a double check in my little book with all my ages of animals and how long they live, and because I do often forget. I am only human, but yes, I was exactly right. It's 20 years. So I double checked that. That's what I thought, and I was right. So zebras are quite similar to donkeys and horses, but we're going to go down to the river now and see if we can find any big crocodiles and hippos. But while we do that, let's head you on over to Jamie, who I think has got a lovely surprise for you.
I have a lovely surprise in the form of a big male giraffe that is stalking along the plains. So the last time that you saw me, we were with the elephant and the little elephant that was chasing birds. Now we are with something that stands even taller than an elephant. It might not be as bulky, but it is taller, the tallest mammal that we will see out here. And you can see he's flicking his head, trying to get rid of the birds that are pecking around his ears. And isn't he magnificent? Now, his legs are taller than me, his front legs. So from his feet to his shoulder is probably about, not quite, but close to double my height. So let's say I think the kids who are joining us this afternoon are around about 8 and 9 years old. So let's say you're around about as tall as I was. So if you stood on your friend's shoulders and then somehow your friend managed to stand on top of the two of you so that there were 3 of you all standing together, 2 of you on each other's shoulders, then you might just be able to touch the top of the giraffe's head, maybe, if you stretched right up. And can I just ask that you don't actually try this? Please don't try and stand on each other's shoulders because you'll get hurt. But if you can imagine, that's how big a giraffe is. It is a very, very tall animal. And that means when it walks, even though it looks like it's walking slowly, it's actually walking quite quickly because its legs might move slowly, but they cover at least a meter, probably more, every time they move one leg forward. So they can walk really quickly without having to rush. Unfortunately, he is walking right in front of the sun, but he'll give you a good idea of what he looks like next to the elephants. If I move for you, then you'll be able to compare him, or maybe not, actually he's walked right past them. Ah. Now, Taylor's got a very good question while we catch up with him, and unfortunately it's not going to be a great view because he is walking into the sun, so it's really, really hard to film him. But Taylor's got a really good question. Now, Taylor wants to know if a giraffe has a certain number of spots. What a good question. Do you know, I've never counted them. But I can tell you that every single giraffe has a unique pattern of spots. So no giraffe has spots the same as another giraffe, kind of like snowflakes. So how many of you, when it's, and I know it's been snowing a lot in certain parts of the States, you will have seen snow coming down, perhaps you've even seen snowflakes, and if you've ever looked closely at them, you'll know that they are completely different. Now, it's the same with giraffe spots, the same with your fingerprints, and I'm pretty sure, Taylor, that they've all got different numbers of spots. I don't think they have the same numbers of spots, but I've never been brave enough to count. Now, Kinsley, you want to know, well, how long is a giraffe's neck? And I tell you what, I can actually see some more because this is really, really hard to see in the bright sun. I'm having to blink. I can barely see. I've got purple spots in front of my eyes. Now, you want to know how long a giraffe's neck is. So a giraffe's neck is, depending on how big the giraffe is, because they come in different sizes, you know. But a giraffe's neck from the bottom of its throat right up to the top of its head is just about 2 meters. So to put that in feet, that's around about 6 feet, give or take a little bit. The tallest giraffe in the world was over 6 meters tall, so over 18 feet tall. Now that is a very, very long creature from the bottom of its feet to the top of its head. Now Ralph has found an animal that can get very, very long from the tip of its snout to the tip of its tail.
Thanks, Jamie. And look at these smiling crocodiles. They look very happy lying on the bank of the Mara River. And crocodiles can live for over 100 years. So just think of that. That's very old for an animal. Riley, you've asked the question, what is the deadliest and probably the dangerous animal in Africa? Well, Riley, it's the one that we were just watching a little bit before the school drive, and that is the hippo, because they kill more people than any other animal. But it's not because they want to eat them, it's because we get in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the hippos don't like it if we come near to their family, so they defend their family, and the result is that we sometimes have people dying. But they kill more people than elephants and lions and leopard and buffalo and rhino. So we need to be very careful around the water where there are hippos, and we also need to be careful of crocodiles, because crocodiles don't really show themselves in the water. They are silent hunters, like that one over there. That's very often all you see from a crocodile, and they very slowly move through the water, and at the last minute they burst out of the water, grabbing whether it's a bird or an antelope that's come down for a drink. And so we also need to be careful if we want to go fishing or we want to go canoeing on the water where there's crocodiles. You need to be very careful because you won't see them coming. Now, these crocodiles here are quite big. You don't always see such big crocodiles. And crocodiles mostly eat fish, and in particular the catfish, which they lie in the current with their head facing upstream like that one's doing, and they open their mouth, and as soon as they feel something just swimming between their jaws, they snap it shut, and the food is in their mouth. Now, Taylor, you're asking how many teeth do they have? Well, they've got a very big mouth, don't they? And they've got a lot of teeth in there. I would say that they've got at least 50. But I'm sure that there is actually quite a lot more of them. But I wouldn't know the exact amount. But I think they also get replaced, not quite the same as that of sharks, which are replaced very quickly. I think with crocodiles they do take a little bit longer to be replaced because they are a lot thicker than sharks' teeth. But they do use them in a similar way. But with crocodiles, we can also remember that when they shut their mouth, that is a very strong bite down. But they can't open their mouth very easily. So if you've seen Steve Irwin or any of these crocodile hunters or people that work with snakes and reptiles, they very easily, even with a small piece of string, they can close a crocodile's mouth and he can't open it. So that's something to remember. If you're ever in trouble with a crocodile, just hold his mouth closed and you'll be safe. But with these crocodiles here, I won't be going anywhere near the water because they might be smiling, but they are rather dangerous. So we do need to be very careful. It would be silly of us to go down there because we would just put ourselves in harm's way, wouldn't we? But these crocodiles, they get very big like this because they do eat bigger animals, not just catfish. They also eat impala, and they eat zebra, and they eat wildebeest. Now, Jackson, you want to know how wide they can open their mouth? Well, they can pretty much open it to about a meter. So that would be about a yard. That's about as wide as they can open it. So it's quite wide, and they can open it wide enough to be able to grab onto a zebra or a wildebeest as they're crossing the river and pull them into the water, and then they will pull them under the water so that they can't breathe, and eventually they will drown, and that's when they will start eating them. And what they do is, when they want to eat them, because they don't bite off pieces of meat, what they will do is they will bite closed on a piece of the leg or a piece of the body, and then they start to spin around in circles, and in that way they rip off pieces of meat and swallow it down. So that's very interesting to know. And we've got lots of crocodiles here. Crocodiles need to get their energy from the sun. So that's why you see them lying on the bank like that, because they need to get their energy. And once they've got their energy, they then go back in the water and go hunting for fish and anything else that is unlucky enough to be anywhere near these crocodiles. But there's obviously lots of food around because there's lots of crocodiles, and they're also very big. So they've obviously been eating very well. But the brown water of the Mara River is very good for crocodiles and all the animals to drink from. So the crocodiles are always just waiting for anything to come down to drink, and then they are the silent hunters. See there? A very evil smile, isn't it? And look at the scales on the top of the tail and the back of the crocodile. That makes it easier for him to swim in the water. So when he faces upstream, it's very easy for the water to flow straight over his back. And then he'll use his tail a little bit like a fish, and he's also got webbing between his toes. So he's got tools like a duck and a fish. So a crocodile has got very, very good tools for being living and surviving in the water. Okay, everybody, and especially for the school group, I'm going to be leaving these crocodiles just now, and maybe we'll go looking for those lions again. So don't go anywhere. We're going to send you on over to Jamie in the meantime, who is going to show you how it is driving around the Mara Triangle.
It is amazing driving around the Mara Triangle because all of a sudden you just find yourself in amongst a herd of elephants. So we're going to get a little bit further, or a little bit closer towards them, and then we'll stop and chat about them. But while we're on our way, a warm welcome to the viewers joining us on WCFF. It is great to have you. If you have just discovered these live safaris, this is 100% live from the Maasai Mara in Kenya and the greater Kruger area of South Africa. So at the moment we're in the Maasai Mara of Kenya. We're coming up to some elephants, and because this is 100% live, send us through your questions on the platform that you're watching, and we'd love to hear from you. At the moment we are joined by two schools this afternoon. Well, for us it's this afternoon, and the kids watching are around about 8-9 years old, much sort of around the same level as this young elephant who's up in front of us, not the same age. So this elephant, kids, is probably about 3 years old, and in human terms that kind of means that he's around about your age in terms of his development. You can see he's playing about here with the sand, using his trunk, touching it, sniffing, blowing, and he's actually having a great time. Oh, did you get a little bit of a dust particle up your nose? Now we have a question from Soren, I think it was. Correct me if I'm wrong, Megs. And you would like to know about the length of an elephant's trunk. Now here's the amazing thing. An elephant's trunk can stretch right up to around about over 1.5 meters in an adult elephant. So that is around about 5 feet or so. But an elephant's trunk is an amazing thing, and forgive me, I'm just going to move slightly so that we can let this car past. The amazing thing about an elephant's trunk is it's like an accordion. Do you know what an accordion is? Now, an accordion is a type of musical instrument that can stretch out and go back in and stretch out. Hello, everyone. So it can stretch out and go back in and contract. And that's because an elephant's trunk doesn't have any bones in it. It's just made up of muscles. So let us see if I can show you what I mean. So what that means is an elephant's trunk can bend in any direction it wants to. It can stretch forward, it can pull back up. Let's watch them use their trunks now. Now, an elephant uses a trunk for lots of different things. It uses it for feeding, mostly, wrapping around the grass like this elephant's doing, and then moving the food to its mouth. It will also use its trunk for drinking. So what it does is it pulls the water up into its mouth, or into its trunk, kind of like a straw, but not quite, because it doesn't actually suck the water up through its trunk and then swallow it. It pulls the water up into its trunk and then it moves it to its mouth. Now, an elephant's trunk is so strong that it can snap big branches, and at the same time, it can also pick up a toothpick off the ground. So their trunks are very, very sensitive, very delicate trunks. And they'll also use it to touch each other, so wrap around their heads, make contact, because as I told you before, elephants are all very closely bonded to each other. Okay, let us go from one extreme to the other, all the way back across to Scott, who is in South Africa, and he would like to show you something a little bit smaller than an elephant.
Well, aren't the elephants and their very fancy noses quite impressive? Now we found ourselves a pretty bird called a European roller. It's called a European roller because that's where it spends half of its year, and it travels all the way down the whole of Africa to come to us to enjoy our summer, where there's a whole bunch of insects around. And we actually managed to just yet catch a small insect. I think it was a grasshopper. It was doing something similar to what it's doing now. It was sitting up on a dead branch like this, high up off the ground, looking and scanning for any prey below, and then it swooped down, caught something out the grass, and flew up to this branch where we see it sitting now, and gobbled it up very quickly. And they do have a cousin here, the lilac-breasted roller, who are probably a little bit more pretty than them, but even this one you can see has got a... I always find it amazing how far some of the smaller birds like this one can migrate. It's not always the big storks with massive wingspans that can make it a long way when migrating, but you do get quite a few small, not only birds, but sometimes even butterflies migrate quite large distances. And up in the Mara, where Jamie and Ralph are taking you around, there's the incredible wildebeest and zebra migration, a few Thompson's gazelle as well, and really looking forward to the next few months when those migrating herds will make it back into the Mara, and the Safari Live crew up there will be bound to get a lot of great action and entertainment from the hundreds and thousands of animals. So we're working in an area where we were on foot this morning, searching for a leopardess and a little cub. We last had her tracks to the left of us, and I'm just hoping that we get a little bit of luck and she pops out onto one of these roads. The bush is very, very thick in this area, so we're going to need a lot of luck in order to be able to find her and her little cub. But the only way we've got a small chance is by driving around this area, and hopefully we'll get lucky. Whoop, sorry Seb. Alright, well, we're going to continue searching for this leopard. Hopefully we'll get lucky and send you back to Ralph, who's searching along the banks of the Mara River.
Thanks, Scott. And yes, everyone, we've returned to where the hippos were seemingly having a very good time, doing a little bit of wrestling and playing in the water. They look quite happy in the nice cool waters of the Mara River. When everybody else is struggling because it's so hot, well, the hippos are quite happy in the water. Listen there. They're calling. So that's the noise that hippos make. See if you can do it, kiddies. Come on. Look how they're playing. Now, Allenton, you want to know how big is a hippo compared to an elephant? Well, a hippo is more the size of a white rhino. So you don't always get to see a hippo standing next to an elephant, but just think of a white rhino standing next to an elephant. Maybe you've seen that, or how big a white rhino is. But if I have to try and compare or tell you how big they are, we're talking at about, it's nearly 5,000 pounds. So that's probably about as big as a Ford F-250 in weight, a pickup. So the car, the Ford F-250, if you know what that looks like, it's quite a big pickup. It's about that size or that weight. It's not as big as that in the size, but it's about as heavy as that. So a hippo can be very heavy. They've got very big fat stomachs, but that's mostly due to the gas that they have in there, and also a little bit of fatness. It does help them for the different temperatures that they live in. But they do have very big fat bellies, and they can hold their breath in the water for about 6 or 7 minutes at the most, but normally it's around a minute or two and they come up. And that's the adults. But there's all sorts going on here, and they seem to be quite happy. Now, Nadia, you want to know if I've ever seen an animal eat another animal? Well, Nadia, I've seen it quite a few times because I've been here in Africa for quite a long time, and I've been watching lions and leopards and cheetah and crocodiles and all of these carnivorous predators that move around here. And it wasn't long ago that we watched some cheetah. First they ate a small antelope, and then they ate a baby antelope as well. So that that is the way the cheetah survive, by eating meat, and that means that they do have to kill the animal before they eat it, unfortunately for the little animal, but that's the way that lions and leopards and hyena and crocodiles and jackals survive. They do need to kill animals sometimes, and they need to eat the meat. So that's the way it works in the wild, but hippos don't need to kill any animals. The only reason they would kill any animals is just to protect their young ones or the babies, and also fighting between each other, because what do hippos eat? They eat grass. So they come out at night after they've been spending the whole day in the river, and they go and find lovely grass. Now, speaking of animals that eat grass and lovely vegetation, let's head you on down south to South Africa to know, well, who's watching the biggest land mammal.
Hello, hello. We were busy tracking a leopard, very fresh leopard tracks, and we saw from the top of the hill just behind us this beautiful scene of elephants swimming. And you know how much we love elephants, and you know how much we love elephants swimming. So we are going to come and have a look at them, take a break from our leopard tracking for now. Oh, fabulous. I'm in love. We're here at Chitwa Dam in front of Chitwa Lodge. Dobby, you must just let me know when you are happy. Okay. And so you will see some buildings in the background from time to time. And it's a nice warm day, and it looks like a bunch of males in the water all together. Roughhousing. That one's standing on another one at the moment, the one on the left-hand side. He's basically drowning him. Showing a little dominant submissive behavior there. Then another one came and pushed him off. The hippos are laughing at them. What a gorgeous afternoon. Molly, very good question. You would like to know, Molly, why do elephants have such big ears? Molly, that's how they take the heat out of their body and or keep the heat in. When they have big ears like that, there's lots of veins behind them, and they lose about 82% of the heat from their body out of the ears when they flap them. And then when they're cold, they keep them flat against the head, and that allows the heat to stay in. Now, I actually think I want to try just a little bit of a different angle just around the corner here, because I think what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to get some hippos in the shot with us. This dam is very full of lots of different things to see at the moment. I'm also checking for our little friend Hasana, who's a little male leopard, and he loves this area. He especially likes to be sneaky behind the dam wall. I believe the question was, how fast can an elephant run? But I'm so sorry, I didn't hear who it came from. Maybe Julie, if I pick that up. Sorry, my comms are a little bit funny. Now they can do about 60, 65 kilometers an hour. Here we go, this is gonna be nice. And there's